Hi everybody, it's Eliezer. So today I'm going to walk through the lab, our squid lab. And first of all, our squid lab is for web access control compared to web content caching. The basic things from the list that we have here, we are going to walk through at this video and others. The first thing is what HTTP proxy is. Go search YouTube and you'll find many good videos with the animation and very good descriptions and details that I cannot provide by myself. So after you'll do that, if you don't know already what HTTP proxy is, then come back here. So what we are going to do in our lab, we are going to configure a basic squid proxy server, again for web access control and not for caching. We will walk through how to configure clients to use Squid as a HTTP proxy, Windows, Linux, CLI, and GUI. We will learn how to use access control lists, ACLs. We will understand some of the basics, some of the basic types of ACLs. We will learn how to use simple user authentication, what's named HT access based on authentication, plain text authentication, or something like that. We will make an introduction to Squid external helpers chat protocol. Then later on we will make an introduction to the mostly used and known external helpers for Squid, again for web access control. And then we will be writing our first external helper and from there we will continue on to do all sorts of tasks. Okay, so the first thing is the lab structure. The lab is composed of a main router with the DHCP service and DNS. In my lab we will be using MikroTik CHR cloud host router. There are three network segments: the one side, the LAN side of the desktop, the DMZ for the servers, and the proxy. A Squid proxy server based on Rocky Linux 9, a testing web server, just to hit it with some traffic, and a set of web clients, web browsers, to see how it all works. Okay, so, and in our Squid proxy setup, we will be integrating Squid as a simple forward proxy which will enforce web traffic control. Squid is capable of caching, but we will not do caching else than the default that comes with the package. We will leave the defaults as they are because they are safe. And just as a side note, Squid as a proxy and many other proxies, even without caching, and as a proxy, can help the clients and browsers handling some of the internet networking level issues like TCP congestion and many other things. Okay, so we will start our overview of the lab, and I have installed here I have installed here Squid on top of Hyper-V because it's a very fast hypervisor. I compared the performance of VirtualBox on the same desktop, and Hyper-V beats VirtualBox in many aspects, and I feel very comfortable with it. Okay, so let's now get into the Squid VM. That's a Squid VM, and we will walk through the basic internet connectivity checks on the proxy. So the first thing is we will log in as root and the password. Okay, let's see what the IP is. The IP address is in the 192.168.45.0/24 CIDR. The router and the DNS. The DNS defined is the router. Okay, so now let's just ping to a known host like the local router, just to see what happens, and it works. Now the second thing is to ping to, let's say, a host like 111 and 888, which are the Cloudflare DNS service and Google DNS service. Now let's check with the host command the domain resolution. Let's say www.google.com. We have a resolution. Okay, so the DNS works. Let's see if we have, okay, let's see if we have dig, we have dig, so dig www.google.com in a less pipe less. Now let's read the results. Okay, the results are coming from the local DNS server in the router, and we have a result. Okay, so this is also working. Let's now try to ping Google, and we have internet. The rest of the last thing we will run is trace path to www.google.com, and we will see if there is a change in the MTU from our lab to the internet. Let's on this, it's okay. Okay. Okay, that's enough. Let's run it without any DNS resolution, and we can see the basic ops of my network, and we can see that there is a change in the MTU at the edge router at op number 4 or 3, between 3 and 4. So the MTU unit for the connections is 1492. Okay, so that's the maximum transmission unit. Okay, so that's it. Now, this system is a Rocky Linux 9, the latest version. Let's try to update it if there is a need. I remember that I updated. Okay, there is an update just in a couple hours. Okay, I will make sure that I have installed the Apple release, because I'm using a repository, because I'm using a couple of tools from there. Okay, CRB enable to enable the repository, the extra repositories. Okay, it's enabled. Check update. Okay, CRB. Okay, great. So now on this machine we have a firewall, and we will disable it. The default installation of Rocky Linux comes with firewall D, so we will disable firewall D, and also stop system D, system CTL, stop firewall D. Okay, now to install Squid, we will now install Squid with the latest version of the Rocky Linux repository. Maybe later on we will install the latest version from my repository, the ngTech repository. Okay, so now DNF install squid-y. Okay, it's already installed. Squid version 5.5. The current version of Squid is 6.12, so it's a very old version. Systemctl status Squid, so it's not on. Okay, let's run a netstart command to see what services are listening on this machine, and we can see that Squid is not in the list. Okay, let's clean the screen. Now let's get into etc Squid. Here we have the squid-conf. There is a big difference between squid-conf and squid-conf documented. Later we will see. This is a very basic example of Squid configuration. These are kind of the defaults, which are pretty safe to use for a local network, but in any way we will walk through it and understand what every piece of the thing does. So Squid as a proxy, what it does, it receives. We will go to the flow. Just a second. Okay. So what happens is a desktop or a client or a browser tries to reach a web server via the router, and in our case it's allowed, but in many networks, in many offices and businesses, it's not allowed because there is an enforcement of controls, traffic controls, so people will not get into harmful websites or will download viruses from unknown sources, and many other options available, like inappropriate content, news, whatever thing that might waste the time of the employee, or make any damage to the business, or for whatever reason there is an enforcement of access to the internet. It can be security, it can be many other reasons. So, okay, so that's the flow of the traffic to the web. Now, usually the Squid is not in the picture, but in our setup, which has a proxy, the proxy is in the middle, and every request that the client makes, it sends a request through the proxy. The proxy is actually a box, so let's get in here. Okay, a proxy is a box. Okay, and this box is programmed statically or dynamically to allow or deny specific web traffic which are configured by this proxy admin. Okay, so that's the basic thing. So there are many aspects to this thing, what can be done actually, and for this to be understood, we must first to take another step back and to take this diagram. Let's just move this aside for a second. Just a second, let's move this here. Okay, so basically HTTP request, hypertext transfer protocol request is always consists of specific things, specific details, like the method, the path, the version of the protocol, the host name, and many other things. You can either use a host name or not, but in our era, it's part of the standard. And okay, so the client requests a specific request. It sends the request to the server. The server receives the request and sends back the response. That's the flow. Now, this box can digest and work with the request details and the request response, and by a predefined set of rules, it can decide whether the request should be allowed or not. Let's take something, some notes here, and we will write, let's say, the proxy should allow traffic to the domain www.example.com, but deny all traffic to other sites. That's a basic definition that we can do and we can implement. It will take some time to understand how to define it, but that's something we can define literally. And now I will translate the rules over here into words. Okay, so let's open this. The default Rocky Linux ACLs in words. Okay, so let's take this here and see what happens. Okay, I will open in a second. I will open terminal to 192.1.1. Okay. Okay, let's change the appearance to a little bit larger. Okay, so we are now inside the server instead of the console. Instead of the console, we will have this, and we will use the SSH connection. Okay, so now let's get into Etsy and Squid. Edit Squid, and now we will see the rules. So the configuration is composed of since it's technically a programming language for the proxy. We have declarations of variables. We have declarations of control mechanisms, and let's see what we have here more. And we have declaration of listening ports, and another one is caching refresh patterns. Okay, these are the set of things that are basically in this list, and we will walk through them one by one. So the first thing is ACLs, access control lists, which are generally list of things that the proxy can take into account when applying the and enforcing the policies. Okay, so we will start with source and port as a general rule. Okay, so the source is basically a a network declaration, which can be either CIDR or network mask or a single IP address. And it's basically the client source address. So if we will get in, let's see if we have TCP dump on the server, we have TCP dump. Okay, so let's just dump something. Any ICMP ping okay, ICMP. Okay, so now I will go into, I will open, what happened? Something crashed. Okay, so now let's open the router. Okay, admin, okay, no password. Okay, let's ping to the address of the proxy. Just a second, let's see what the address is. Okay, so ping 192.168.45.211, and we can see the packets are flowing, and there is a ping from the IP of the router to the IP of the proxy. So these source addresses are the source IP of the client, which the proxy sees in the packet. These are the defaults for local networks by the different RFCs. So in our use case, we only use specific one. We will disable all the others. We will disable IPv6, and also we will enable only our LAN, which is inside this CIDR, global CIDR 192.168/16. Okay, so now we are actually configuring or editing the configuration that we will use, the squid will read and will apply on the connections. Okay, another ACL type is port. So the structure of the ACL definition is ACL, name of the ACL, type of the ACL, and one of two, I would call it a variable or file name in quotes, file name path, let's say. Okay, okay, and there are a couple options like -n and -i, which are different options for the ACL instruction. Okay, so so we see now a definition of an ACL named local net as type of source, SRC, and with a specific network, which means that we will define a sentence later on with this ACL. Okay, another one is SSL ports, which is defined by default, as you can see in the examples. The default port of SSL is 443, and later on we will see why does it matter. The basic allowed ports are listed here. And also in the example we can see here in the comment the type of protocol that should be or registered to these ports. So okay, so now what we should understand is that we now only want to allow specific ports, but in this setup, which is pretty safe, all of these are predefined with the next rules, which means HTTP access deny or allow, and a specific set of ACLs. And technically it's saying something like either deny or allow if all of the next criteria are matched. That's the sentence. So when a request flows into the proxy, it's a first hit rule, which means that the configuration file is being read from top to bottom, and the lists are being aggregated one after the other in a serial manner. So the first rule of the policy is HTTP access, which is being enforced when the request is being received. And so HTTP access, which because it's a HTTP proxy, and the first rule is actually a safety mechanism: deny all traffic which is not in the safe ports. Which means if the destination port which we want to reach is, let's say, port 22, which is not in the safe ports, which is a SSH service default port, it will be denied. So it's very simple. This is the first rule. So, but if it will be a port with the destination port 80, 21, 443, 70, etc., it will not be denied. Okay, that's the thing, because it's a full match apply policy only. So let's say port 80 will not match this rule, hence the next rule in the line will be evaluated in a loop, and one after the other. So now the second rule is HTTP access deny what should be denied. If it's a connect method, which a connect method is not written here, but it's a default method which is embedded in Squid, and the Squid configuration parser knows that a connect means a connect method. So a connect method deny, and later on I will show you how it looks like, and the next check in line to see if this policy will be enforced is the not sign, the not SSL port. So if we will look in the SSL port, we see 443. So connect, let's say connect to port 80 or port 22 will match this rule, but the only allowed port is 443. So everything else then port 443 with a connect method will match this line and will be denied. So a simple request to an HTTP port on port 80 will just not match this line, and the software will jump to the next rule and to verify whether the request answers or meets the criteria of the next rule. So HTTP access, again, it's a HTTP proxy. The policy now is allow if matched all the next in a serial manner. So allow, what allowed? Localhost is a definition like connect. It's a default definition, which is it's two addresses, 127.8. That's a CIDR, which means that there is an ACL like this, and also this. Okay, this is actually something which is a default thing in Squid, so we don't have to define it. Okay, It's a known thing. So a predefined thing. Okay, so a local host. So if the request comes from, let's say, the client, the router, which its address is 192.168.45.254, for example, it will not match this rule to a local host. So this rule will be marked as unmatched and will be ignored, and the next rule will be evaluated. Okay, but if it's from the local host, it will try to verify if the next ACL, the predefined ACL manager match, and the manager is basically the internal Squid web service, which gives some statistics and some information on the configuration of Squid. So this rule allows actually to any request that comes from localhost, that is originated from localhost, to reach the manager pages. Okay, now the next rule is if it came from, let's say, the local address of the router or another host in the network, it will not match all the above. So the next rule is a deny rule for only manager, and it's, if you remember, it's a serial match. So if it does not match this, the next question from Squid side is, does it match this, and then this? And if it's not a manager request, then it will not match this same. But this line here is, the reason for this is to, it's actually the combination of these two rules is to allow localhost to the manager interface and deny anything else. And in a serial manner, there is a complete management of what is allowed and what is denied. Okay, the next check is whether to allow local net, which we defined here, local net, or all the local nets. And these rules are okay and very good for an internet facing proxy, and these ACLs designed to block any traffic that will come from the internet, so the proxy will not be abused. Okay, so allow local net. So in this case, if I will originate from the route, the desktop or any other thing, it will be matched. The next thing is the allow local host, which is kind of again after all the other checks. So if it's not for a safe port, it will be denied. If it's not a SSL port on which means port 443 with a connect method, it will be denied. But if it's a connect for 443, it will not be denied and will be allowed by this rule. And the same for this rule, but for local host addresses, i.e. loopback connections. And the end of all ACLs is denial. It's a best practice to deny all traffic, or else the last rule will be matched if I remember right. And it's very important to be explicit in what you configure the proxy. Okay, another line here is HTTP port. HTTP port is actually configuring the port that the Squid proxy will listen to. There are a couple ways to define this. We will use only the basic configuration for now. So this is the basic default. Core dump dir is something for debugging. In a comment there is a cache dir, which a definition which you can enable if you want, but we don't need it. And the last but not least is the refresh patterns, which actually defines what should be allowed and how long a request or a response should be cached for. Okay, these are the basic configuration I got out of the setup, and now we will start Squid. And status. Okay, so we have Squid up and running. There is an access log file at var log squid access log. There is only one line for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. From the server itself, maybe from another time which I tested the things. Okay, so now let's open the desktop. Something is stuck. Okay, now let's open the Windows desktop. Okay, and now let's get into the proxy settings in the Windows, and let's disable the automatically detect, and we will define a manual proxy settings. Let's put the address here 192.168.45.211 port 3128. Okay, save. Now we will open Edge, and we will try to open here in the side the squid window. We'll open the logs in a follow manner. Okay, so there are already couple requests. Let's go into Google, and again, just a second. Okay, we can see some traffic here, and just a second, let's open with less the logs and see what we got. So we got all sorts of connections. The logs, I will not walk through the logs, but you can see that most of the connections are to port 443 and using connect. And what a connect connection means, connect is usually a TCP connection and usually HTTPS connection, i.e. HTTP, which is encrypted inside a SSL TLS connection. That's what it is. Okay, so now it's a little bit complicated, but just a second, let me look over a couple of things. So we actually configured Squid to allow traffic. Now let's get into Squid, and we will actually configure Squid to do something. We will edit Squid conf, and what we will do, we will add a first rule here, HTTP access deny all. Okay, the same rule that appears here, but the first one. Now let's save the file, and now let's run systemctl reload squid access log. Let's see what happens, and we see that some traffic is being denied. And this is the client IP, this is the epoch time, and this is the response size. But we can see that the traffic is being denied because we denied everything. Okay, let's throw to the background the logs, get into the file, remove the deny rule, and reload squid. Okay, let's get back into the logs. Let's get back into the machine, the VM, and now let's try to refresh everything. Okay, it works, and we can see the traffic. Some traffic is being handled, some is not. Let's get into another website, ngtech.co.il. Okay, now let's use HTTP, and we can see the HTTP. The HTTP request is in plain text, but the encrypted one we cannot see. Okay, so now that we see the website, we will just a second again disable the traffic. We will try to access the website. In HTTPS it's a little bit complicated, but with an HTTP connection we will try to access the site, and we will get and receive access denied from Squid. Okay, so that's what it is. Let's remove again the deny rule and reload the page, and the page works. Okay, so this is the basic of ACLs in Squid. So we have connect, we have ACLs, source, port, we have seen HTTP, in just a second, HTTP access, and also, okay, that's enough for now. Okay, so if we will go back, you probably have seen what HTTP proxy is. We basically configured the Squid proxy server. We configured Windows client. There are other clients out there, for example, a CLI client. We can do something like this, or let's say 192.168.45.1, okay, and URL, okay, just a second, no, I wanted something else, okay, so now we are sending a request. This is a HTTP request. Later on we will talk about it. Okay, so we sent a request through the proxy. It used the HTTP proxy environment variable compared to Windows using the defined proxy in the Windows settings. And also, and we can see here something, the via header is actually showing that the client used the proxy, and if we will contact the same domain, the same service without the proxy, we will see that it's a little bit different. The via header is not there, and the connection is being done directly to the IP of the service, the server. Okay, so these are the basics of the basics. How to use access control lists, we actually know how to use them, but in the next video we will delve into the different access control lists and the most commonly used ones, and after that we will continue to authentication and then externals, helpers, URL rewriters, and eventually also deep dive into Squid Guard internals. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed this show. See you.